my friend. It's been a minute. It's in the spectacular world of blending. Well, it's true. All right, you ready? Yeah.
Sit down. Come on, you're not running for Metro Mayor. Sit down. All right, welcome everybody to May installment of the Big Bourbon Club. Good to see you all again. Everybody ready? Raise your hand if you've tried 15 stars. Raise your hand if you have not. Johnson's, that's an opportunity.
We got work to do.
It's an opportunity for you all. You're going to love it. This stuff is fantastic. In fact, Rick and Ricky sat at that table as my guests probably 3 years ago. Who was the tasting that night? Do you remember?
Makers.
Was it Maker's Mark?
Uh-huh.
Probably 3 years ago. So they came to watch it, and 3 years later, here we are. But they have matured into an incredibly good brand, and it's growing, and we're going to have a lot of fun with it tonight. 5 expressions. One of them's never been tasted before. It's the rye. It'll be the last tasting. We're going to give away a bottle. If you do not have it, does everybody have a red ticket that we're going to draw from? Raise your hand if you do not have a ticket. Who's got the tickets? Who is? Thank you. All right, raise your hand if you don't have tickets. All right, you take those, put 2 in here. So just a quick reminder of a couple things. We've got some, raise your hand if you, Hal just pulled his shoulder out of his socket. Raise your hand if you're from out of state. All right, Louisiana, put your hands down. Bunch of coon asses. Okay. Where are you all from? Fort Wayne. Nashville. Anybody else from out of town? Okay, thanks for coming in from out of town. Louisiana, where are you all from? New Orleans? They're not sure where they're from. Okay. Welcome to the Big Bourbon Club. Let me tell you a little bit about the club. We've got some, raise your hand if you're not a member of the club. That's my opportunity. The Big Bourbon Club, most of you know it, and we're streaming out as well. But if you're not aware, bourbon is good as the name, Big. We host all of our events here right at Joe's. We do a lot of private events outside of here. We do a lot of barrel picks. We've done over 40 of them. This is the first event we've ever done without a barrel pick being sold because we have no barrel pick bottles right now. So I got to go find a good place to do a barrel pick. And if anybody gets an idea, let me know what it is. But we're going to get some more barrels coming, and we're going to have a lot of fun with that. We're going to have so we've got an event in June 21st, Saturday. It'll be packed. Old Carter, Mark Carter will be here to present 4 different expressions. The night, Booth, Brian Booth works for Mark Carter. There you are, Brian, raise your hand. So we've got Old Carter. And then the night before, Friday night, we have a kind of a VIP tasting at the Old Carter Club. Booth will host us with Mark, and we've got 3 tastings that day. We've got kind of a reunion group. Every June or July, members of the club from all over will come into Louisville because it's a weekend and it's in the summertime, so they take time off. Big Bourbon Club, we've got about 7,000 members. We're in 50 states and 17 countries, and we operate in a virtual world. Now, obviously, we do a lot of live events or in-person events, but we have a lot of live events that are virtual. And so we have an app, and if you could use the barcode or go to bigbourbon.club.com, which is the website, and just hit that. It'll take you through the whole thing, but we have a free membership and multiple premium memberships. But we're doing very cool things. The most important thing, the reason we started this club, Cress Bride, raise your hand. Cress owns Joe's Older Than Dirt, and he's my partner in this. The reason we started this really is that we wanted people to have the opportunity to try bourbon that really didn't have access to it. And it could be someone from Wyoming, it could be a young person, it could be, but if you're not an older person from Louisville like me that happens to know a lot of people from growing up here, it may be harder to get access to some of the really good bourbon. So our mission is to really bring great bourbon, great stories, great people together through bourbon and let everybody try it. Hence the free membership, hence the virtual platform, the streaming, is we want people all over the world to see it if they're interested in seeing it. So we're having a great time. After the Mark Carter event, after the Old Carter event in June, we have nothing scheduled yet in terms of presentation and tastings until November, and that's Limestone Farms. We just sold out of that barrel pick. It's great stuff. So they'll be here. I'm working on a couple of other things. I've got a private event that we're going to do. There's going to be a seat, probably 20 seats at Stephen Fonte's house, and it'll be a Yellowstone private event, catered. It's not going to be cheap, Booth. You probably couldn't afford this one. Just joking. But we're going to do that. We've got a couple of other things coming up that are really cool, so just keep your eyes peeled. We're going to have a lot of fun with it. Okay? 15 stars, you all ready to try it? All right, let me introduce Rick and Ricky Johnson, the founder, owner, proprietors. Let's go, guys.
Good.
Thanks, Steve.
Well, we're glad to be here, and I'm glad that there are some hands that have not tried 15 stars. But for those of you that have tried 15 stars, we've got at least one, even if you've kind of been around our world. We got one tonight that actually nobody but Ricky and I and Ricky's mom and maybe sister and her husband. So it's family. Yeah. So besides family, you're going to get to taste a really special whiskey tonight, a rye whiskey. But we want to take a few minutes and just tell you a little bit about 15 Stars. So obviously got a few people who are not overly familiar. Who knows why 15 Stars has its name?
So we only have one? Well, okay.
Okay. But mostly not.
Of course, your table. Everybody raises their hand.
All right. 15 Stars. Kentucky is the 15th state of the Union. The second U.S. flag had 15 stars and 15 stripes. And I don't know what state Louisiana was. Do you guys know? I don't know. So we got a crew from Louisiana here that we want to welcome. Our distributor, Wines Unlimited, and Martin's, who work together. And then a group from BXL Social. Is that right? I said it right? Got the initials right? Yeah, so from Louisiana, great to have you here and sharing with us a little bit about 15 Stars. If it looks like we're related, I don't know that you said father and son. You may have, and I wasn't listening, but obviously we are father and son. Ricky is the younger of the two, in case you weren't sure. And Ricky's the reason we got in this business. I've been in a number of businesses over the years. I started with my dad, who was Dick, or Richard the first. I'm a junior. Ricky's the third. But I started with him in a gasoline business. I opened our first convenience store. We grew that to a couple of hundred convenience stores in Indiana, Kentucky, and Illinois. I've owned Indiana Limestone Company, mined and fabricated building stone. Owned Central Restaurant Products and sold restaurant equipment across the country with a sales team in Indianapolis. Owned a Lenny's Sub Shop, a group of sub stores around. So if you get the idea that business is a little bit of a hobby of mine, you got the right idea. I just like to do it. It's fun. And Ricky was in college and needed a little something to do one summer. And one summer I took a summer and worked for a guy in my hometown, Columbus, Indiana, and put together a business plan for a vitamin store. And I thought, that I really learned a lot from ground zero, figuring out how you put a business plan together, how you really would put a business together. I thought that'd be great for Ricky. And I thought the plan would go where mine went, which was in that round file. But Ricky, you want to talk a little bit about your summer?
Yeah, so it turns out the summer that I spent did not end up in the trash. I created a business plan. It was the idea to see if we could take popcorns that we sell through a brand called Black Jewel. So Black Jewel sells specialty heirloom colored corns as popcorn, but turns out we realized we could make those into bourbon as well. So my project was to create a business plan around that. So, set out in the summer learning, making different connections. One of those connections being with Bardstown Bourbon Company. I'm sure you guys are familiar with them. And they are young still and were even younger at that time. So they hadn't done any distilling of these interesting heirloom colored corns. And so we're very excited to do so. And as of November 2019, we joined forces with them and distilled first this little black corn.
That is full size, by the way.
Yep. So you can see, compared to my hand, very small ear, and that is what Black Jewel is named after, this black ear corn. Distilled that first in a wheated bourbon mash bill, and then went on to also distill a red, white, and blue corn variety, or those corns both separately and together in one mash bill, in a rye bourbon variety. And since then have kept distilling other mash bills, not including those corns, and some other interesting ones like a barely legal rye that we used a black and white corn in. So a lot of different unique mash bills with these awesome colored corns. And these corns also being proprietary to us. So nobody else is distilling those. There are corns, and only we have them, and only we have the bourbon from them. But those are still aging. So what happened was basically my dad and I would, in effort to understand the different variables in bourbon and how they affect flavor, would do a lot of different flights. And so with these flights, at the end of each flight we would do, this was shortly after starting distilling, we would blend the product together at the end to create one overall bourbon, a concoction, just out of our own curiosity. And a lot of times these blends we made would end up tasting better than any of the individual components. So we kept doing that after each of these flights. And over time, we found it to be a consistent trend where we like these blends better. And so based on that, we decided we wanted to start blending. We really had a belief in that, and that it could create a more complex flavor profile, a more rich and interesting bourbon. So we started sourcing a little more intentionally, and that led to what the inventory we have today is, which is anywhere from 0 all the way up to 20-year-old bourbon. Our palates skew towards the higher age. You'll find that in the products we try today. And so that is where our inventory is headed towards as well. So 15 stars kind of based on these high-aged products, blending, and flavor proofing, which we'll get into.
Yeah. So our first bourbon was 2022, April of 2022. We were going to put a 15-year bourbon in a bottle. We had the labels made up. We had the bottling all scheduled. We had everything ready to go. And we kept playing with these, like Ricky said, and we always feel like we have an opportunity to add depth of flavor with a blend. We have that opportunity to take different bourbons, and it helps if you have a rich inventory like we do have, but we can find things that broaden that flavor profile, that give it more depth, more complexity. And so as we were playing around, we found a 14-year that we thought went with that 15 extremely well and produced something better. We actually destroyed the 15-year-old labels. We put the 14, which was a blend of 14 and 15-year bourbon, into a bottle. We started selling that for $279, our first bourbon on the market. And our friends looked at us and said, why in the world would anybody buy a $279 bottle of whiskey from you guys? which was a hell of a good question. But we had invested, as you can imagine, in those barrels, and it's kind of what it took to put it out there. That bottle kind of set a track for us, to be honest, because it nailed that blending piece that Ricky was talking about, that our commitment to blending, that if we're trying to do the very, very best that we could do, which is what we do, and that we really, the opportunity to tweak it at the end is a really unique opportunity. So we put that in that bottle. It ended up, Ricky comes to me one day in the office that said, hey, the San Francisco World Spirits Competition says we're one of 3 finalists for Best Bourbon of the Year at their competition. And I said, yeah. I said, there is no way, you know, me being in business for a long time, I said, there is no way. That is bullshit. They want $500 from us to go to the event and, you know, go through the dog and pony. I said, there's no way we could have done that. And then we're looking at a Forbes article, and looking through the bourbon piece, and it says 15 stars, is one of 3 finalists for Best Bourbon of the Year at San Francisco World Spirits Competition. So I called Ricky up and I said, okay, I'll eat crow here. It actually is true. We took a great family trip, and that's a great thing about bourbon. You guys know it. It's about relationships. It's about time spent together with people you care about. Sharing a great bottle is about elevating those times. That's why we put these bourbons in a bottle, to be honest. That's what we do. And it enriches our lives. And that's a perfect example of our family getting together. Ricky's sister, Annie, works in the popcorn business. And so Alice, my wife, Annie, Ricky, and I take a trip to San Francisco, spend an outstanding weekend in San Francisco. We did not pick up the top prize, but I can tell you, being one of 3 finalists on your first bourbon was really, really an eye-opener for us, was great for us. But the most important thing about it was it set a track for us about what we wanted to do and what we thought was possible. Because at the very beginning, we did not think that was possible. And so it really got us spending a lot of time working through the nuances of flavor in the bourbons that we put out. So Ricky talked about the popcorn. Who in here are popcorn fans? We got to have at least 2, 1 from each side of the room. All right, we got 1. Now we got to have a female. All right. And who knows how to pop popcorn?
It's too vocal.
Oh, she called out the babe and got it.
Yeah. Okay, your pick. A mix or black? All right. How good's your catch?
That's risky.
My throw is a little weak. So
Those are fellow Hoosiers. They did pretty good.
oh yeah. So those are great corns, as Ricky talked about them. They taste different as a popcorn, and when we pop these different corns, each one of them has its own flavor profile, and in a bourbon, each of them have their own flavor profile. Most people don't start distilling, right? Most people start in this business sourcing. We started distilling, and we spent 3 years just distilling these old corns, and I figured I'm getting gray, and I may not last this out. You know, so I don't know how long this is going to take. So we started sourcing these old bourbons. So maybe we ought to take a minute and try one. Anybody want to try something? You got one in front of you?
All right, so the first product we're trying today is our private stock. It is a blend of 8 and 15-year-old bourbons, both from Kentucky at 107 proof.
Yeah, there you go.
Our private stock was actually our second release. Yep.
I want to take a picture of it.
So yeah, our second ever release, and really kind of a great blended product because you get that diversity of age. 8 isn't a young bourbon, but as far as compared to 15, it definitely is. And so you take that younger tasting 8-year-old mixed with bold and oaky 15, especially the 15 that's in this. Very oaky on its own, a bit tannic, kind of one could consider overage, but when blended at the right proportions with a young, fruity, caramely bourbon, you get a really nice oak backbone on the end product. And I think that's what you'll find here.
Now, it does tell you something when we talk about an 8-year-old as a young bourbon. So I just wanted you to catch that. So,
Let me interrupt for one. Did everybody get a pour? Except for Chip. There you go.
Thank you, Steve.
You're welcome, sir. So we sipping now?
Yep, I believe so. Thank you, sir.
So, Ricky, you want to talk a little bit about the proofing process? He mentioned flavor proofing. We have trademarked the term, but Ricky, tell them how we get there.
Yeah, so what we call flavor proofing is our proofing process. And we are believers that the proof dictates the flavor in a bourbon and plays a significant part in that. And that every bourbon has a proof that it matches up with that produces the best flavor. So when we're blending, we don't create a final blend and then proof as an afterthought. We are proofing during our blending process. So what that involves is during the blending, when we have these different proportions and samples that we're trying them up and down the proof range so that we can find a blend and proof combination that work the best together. Because it's not necessarily your final blend. It's the best proofs might not be your final blend A at 110 and 105 proof. The best proofs might be blend A at 110 and blend B at 102. But you wouldn't know that blend B at 102 was a great bourbon unless you proofed it and tried that. So that's our goal, is to kind of exhaust those options in proof and make sure that we've explored the flavors possible and chosen the best one. And it's kind of, as opposed to we call proofing low, we call that accounting proof, because you would be proofing for cost or volume. And then there's also what we call marketing proof, which would be the bottled in bonds, the cask strengths, which there's nothing wrong with that, but we think it skips a valuable step in the blending and production process, which is finding that proof that brings out the best in the bourbon.
If you think about blending, and that's core to us, and think about that very first bourbon that got one of 3 finalists, and then the next time we've had probably, I don't know, a dozen that are either best of or that finalist category of best. And so we really started in the very first kind of dissecting what we do and say, okay, if we're producing some things like this, what is it that helps us produce it? And so in some ways we reversed engineer it so we could refine it. And some of it's just art, to be honest. And one of the favorite things I think of when Ricky was an 8 or 9-year-old kid is he could smell a McDonald's like 2 miles away. You go, yeah, it's there, it's there. And it would be there. So see, he's always had a really good knack, from a nose and a palate. But so some of it's art, some of it's just, we got to say it's trial and error, right? I mean, even when you do everything we do to go through a process of blending, it still gets down to trial and error. But we did produce, and we have produced, a 5-page list of some of the things that make us different and that we think bring value to it. And one of the key things, quite frankly, is it's Ricky and I, it's a father and son, and we are doing the blending, right? We are doing it personally. And where do we do it? We do it in our home kitchen. And so it doesn't often happen there. So you get the sense, first of all, this isn't a job, right? I mean, in some ways, this is a labor of that social aspect that we talked about, of spending time with people you like. And it's much to my wife's chagrin, I have to say, because there are these tasting bottles that get all over the kitchen. And I can also say that if it wasn't for Ricky, I wouldn't get by with that, But the fact that Ricky's over there getting that done, we're all is good, right?
I still hear about it.
And not only that, but when we do the blending, she makes a hell of a dinner when Ricky's coming over for that. So we get a great dinner, and we get to make a mess out of the kitchen.
Hey, Rick, we've got a question on Facebook from Thomas Reed. I think you just answered it.
Oh?
But he sent this about 10 minutes ago. Did you work with Blender to get that blender? Or did you just do it with you two?
Yeah.
Just you guys.
From the very start, it's just been us. And we thought that was really important part of the process. Now, when I say it's just been us, let me say this. We didn't just think that we could be master blenders and we could figure this out and wouldn't get some advice. So we did spend, and we do spend time among the industry veterans. And did we take that 14 and 15-year blend when we thought we had it? And did we take it around? And even before that, did we taste that from in front of some of the guys who have been doing this for a long, long time? We absolutely did. And you know what one of the guys, I still remember it, when one of the blenders, who I won't say the name, but you all would know, took a drink of that and he said, "Home run." I thought, okay, well, he was right.
That was
Yeah.
the 14-year-old.
That was the 14-year-old. Yeah. So,
Well, why don't
yeah.
Can we ask what everybody thought about it?
Yeah. What do you think?
Yell out. What did you get on that? Did you like it? What'd you get on the nose? What'd you get on the finish? Talk to us. I get spicy too. It is
Thank
very.
you. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you.
I get kind of a medium viscosity on it, creamy, not terribly too much, but you definitely get that. Did you all get that as well?
Yeah.
What about flavor notes? Vanilla.
I was thinking my favorite note from it, I always get bananas Foster, like that kind of caramelized banana flavor. That's what I always think of.
Does anybody get mini popcorn on it? No, that's a joke. Come on, liven up, guys. I'm normally yelling at you, telling you to be quiet. Now I can't get you going. We got another question here. The question's for the audience, not for you all. Does anybody else have a father that funded their college thesis and turned into a real business? Actually, I made that up. That was my question. It's a great story, though.
Yeah. Crazy.
And we're going to hit a history component here before we get done. And 15 stars, right? 1795. Kentucky's a state in 1792. In 1795, a 15-star flag recognizing Kentucky, second flag of the U.S., 1795 to 1818. And so we've got on our website, if you have any interest in history, we got some really cool stuff that celebrates Kentucky as that 15th state. And on the tasting pad that you got, I'll just walk through a couple of things that come out of that collection that give you a sense. So there's a 1795 gold piece on there with 15 stars around it. So in 1795, George Washington's president in 1789. He's still president in 1795. 15 stars on all the coinage, all the first coinage of the U.S. celebrating 15 stars. Where the platinum is, you see a flintlock of a Kentucky rifle. We got a couple Kentucky rifles built in Kentucky that show the craftsmanship that's been going on since the very first days of Kentucky. And quite frankly, that's what kind of inspires us to craft the very best whiskeys that we can craft. As we look at that history of and on our website, you'll see pieces of really highly crafted furniture, master craftsmen working furniture, working silver, working gunsmithing. On the bottom left, you got a piece of china there. And when I say China, I'm talking from China. And so that actually is a piece of china from Gansu, China. And it was picked up by a ship in 1795 and sailed back to the U.S. And if you notice, there's a Great Seal of the United States and 15 stars above it. If you look above the three ports, what you see there is we own a land grant signed by the first Kentucky governor, Isaac Shelby. And Shelby signed that, and on it is that seal of Kentucky that's still the seal of Kentucky today. Two guys, shaking hands, and it was engraved by a Kentucky engraver in 1792, I think it was. And then at the bottom right is a New York State 1794 Cooper's certificate. So the people who made barrels. And you can see in there's some smoke coming out of a barrel. How long have people been charring barrels? I don't know, but they were charring them in 1794. I do know that. And so we've got a lot of really cool stuff that show the history and heritage of America around the 15 stars and the craftsmanship going on in there, and what again we think of as master craftsmanship of that time making things that would stand the test of time. So that's what we're trying to do.
So let me ask y'all a trivia question. Hypothetically, if these guys had a bourbon and it was named 14 Stars, what would it have been named after? Do you know it? Don't say it if you know it. Does anybody know it? Callahan's. The 14th state. 13 colonies. What was the first state after the colonies? We were the second. No. Vermont. How'd you know that? That's awesome. I guess same reason I knew it. Kind of boring life. All right.
Have we got a second pour around?
We do.
So moving on, I should look at a sheet. What is our second pour? The Platinum. Yeah. Platinum is what would be considered kind of our top line bourbon blend of 19, 15, and 10-year-old bourbons from Kentucky, Indiana, and Tennessee. So a lower proof for us, normally we find our sweet spot is kind of in that 100 to 110 range where there's enough flavor from the proof that it's, full and viscous, but it's also not, you're not being distracted from the flavor by the proof, but this one sat really nicely at 98. Our goal with this was just to create an elegant, nuanced, smooth, neat sipper. I think this has accomplished that very well. This was actually just at the New York World Spirits Competition last fall. I think it was September, November, December, yeah. A little later. Was best small batch bourbon last year. So,
Ricky, what's the retail price on that?
Retail price on the Platinum is $279.
So this is the highest of the.
Yeah, highest level we got.
The first bourbon we tried, our private stock product. So this one made a little different, incorporating some so we'll bring a little different dynamic of flavor, whereas we get almost a little bit of nut brittle, roasted nuts, a bit of bacon, nutmeg in that. The flavors will still come.
So this one is Ricky's mom's favorite, and I just think of it as a gentleman's bourbon, a really distinguished thing, a really smooth, rich, flavorful pour. It's a family favorite. I don't know. How many people prefer the first one, the private stock Case 15, over the Platinum? How many people are preferring the Platinum? It's a favorite, huh? Well, that's small batch bourbon. You were one in spirits competition, so yeah. A lot of times it's half and half. Interesting. Maybe I talked too good about it.
So what did you all get on the Platinum?
going. That's right. There's the whole, they ran that whole story. Yeah, but we live in that but our forms are grown. Organic. That's what we have to do. But I think that's where all of our work happens. And we do it get early on. Like Burger Company, after the very start, we did go around and look at several opportunities. We've got a lot of great friends that are in our facilities, but we chose that Bardstown team as the very first. And we know that the way we come it. They made a commitment to us. So they're not really a first commitment, but kind of a friendly discussion. And they said, treat it like you treat your facility. That has been the case ever since, up through a phone call we had with them an hour before we walked in here. The relationship is awesome. We ship our corns in there. We provide the mash bills. We work with their team. We bottle there. We produce the blend and fully samples. And we do that. But once we've got that recipe nailed, we give that to them. And we put it together at scale with them.
A lot. You're saying, let's take these three and make it kind of homogenous. So roughly that.
I think a lot of people, did you all realize that contract manufacturing is that detailed and specific to the brand? A lot of people,
They make bourbon, and here's some excess, you go buy the barrel. This is really specific to the brand owners and what they're driving.
they see a lot of different things, right? If you go to NCT, I mean, they make a variety of mash bills, and we're not making one NCT at all. I think we're one of whiskey, right? But there, you're not walking in and saying, hey, we want to ship our corns in there. You're not doing that, right? You're not shipping your and hey, do this mash bill. You're basically saying at that distillery, a great distillery, but you're saying, hey, they've got a wide variety here, and you're trying to find out how you either work with those individually or as a blend. But Bardstown really does, if we were going to do it ourselves, we'd be doing it just like they're doing it, to be honest. So are we thinking about putting a distillery together? No, we are not. Because it really, we kind of have one is the way we look at it. Are we looking at a tasting room where we can have a more physical presence? Yes, we are. And we're looking at sites in Louisville, Kentucky, Main Street, and we're looking at sites in Bardstown. And so we're going to find a spot where we can kind of put some of our historical items to kind of have a little bit of a museum around the history of America, Kentucky, and whiskey. And we want to put that together and then have a spot where we can feature our whiskeys. Yeah.
Think back to when you first started and when you were first at the table and putting these things together.
Hey, yell out real loud if you don't mind.
Say just when you were first blending and you were thinking, what do you think? You were going back and forth. Have you found a more expedited method to move through the process?
I wish.
Yeah, so basically the question was just, have we figured out a way to not go back and forth as much on our thoughts, a way to get to the end product a little quicker? And the answer is no, that hasn't happened for us.
Might be taking longer.
Yeah. And the thing is one, there's only so much bourbon you can try in a day. That extends it over multiple days. And so you have that, but then I'll make a batch. I'll leave it for him to try when he gets home, and then we'll call each other and talk about it. And then, okay, we thought this, let's go back another day and work off that. And slowly but surely it gets to the final product. But I will say we generally agree pretty well on what we want to put in a bottle.
Very similar palate.
Yeah, we're very similar in that. So it's not us arguing over entire different directions with a blend. It's more our differences get down to choosing between 105 and 107 proof for a final product, or 2% here of this, more of this product. And it's very minute stuff that really is just getting down into the weeds. I wouldn't say more than you should, because we do think that those percentages matter. So it's worth our time to go back and forth on, but it is really.
Well, which one was it? What were we tasting that you left them out? And I said in between. What was
it was for our toasted, we were proofing a toasted oak product that we'll talk about in a bit.
Yeah.
But
it was toasted oak. This is amazing, really, quite frankly.
I had left out for him to try a 96 proof, 100 proof, and 104 proof.
No, there was 4. There was 4 on each side, I think.
It was 96 and 100. I know it's a gap.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
way.
There was 4 on each side. He's got a little memory problem, but it's okay.
But basically, I had written in my notes that I liked I had said I liked the 96 and the 100 proof, and that if I were going to adjust it, I would prefer it in the middle at 98 proof. And then I just wrote that thing, and okay, whatever, he'll choose one of the proofs on there. I get a call later tonight with him saying, okay, what'd you think? Because I'll never tell him what I thought before he tries it, just to keep him unbiased. But he says, if it was me, I would put him at 98 proof. I was like, well, funny you say that, because that's exactly what I wrote in my notes on my phone.
So that's kind of wild, right? I mean,
that.
tasting through a samples, which one do you like best? No, it's in between those two.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's kind of unbelievable. So our palates, one of the advantages we have in our blending too is we have the same flavor memory, right? So we've been through the same whiskeys, the same blends, the same process, and so it really does sharpen our ability to work together. It helps to have a couple opinions, and it still helps to take it to some of the pros, right, and get a thought. And we've had, well, wasn't it Sherry Cask we got nervous about a little bit? Our Sherry Cask, which was probably the biggest award winner we've had. With that whiskey, was it 2023? Yeah, 2023 at the New York Wine and Spirits Competition, we swept the whiskey awards. No company has ever done that before. We had best finished bourbon, best rye whiskey, and best of show whiskey. Got them all. And Sherry Cask got the best finished bourbon and best bourbon. Did not win best of show whiskey. But that's an example of an example of us taking something really weird, in some way. So a distiller here, a major distiller, finished some bourbon in Sherry Cask barrels, and forgot about them. So it was like put in when the stuff was 6 or 7 years old. It had turned 13 years old. There were some barrels out on the market. We thought 13-year-old Kentucky bourbon.
7 years in a Sherry Cask.
Yeah, 7 years in a Sherry Cask. Typically finished whiskeys, what is it? 6 months, a year,
Right.
18 months maybe. 7 years in a Sherry Cask. It was sherry concentrate. It was undrinkable. What proof was it?
142.
142 proof. And it was just so soaked in sherry. We went through our entire repertoire, and we have a repertoire. I mean, I don't think there's anybody has a more diverse inventory of great bourbon than we have, high age. I don't think it exists. And we had one bourbon, a 10-year-old, that really blended well with it. And we backed that off with that 10-year-old bourbon. So we put a Sherry Cask out at 10 years old, using a whiskey that people had given up on, was sitting in inventory. Nobody wanted to use. And we produced what really was, we can't even hardly name all the awards that it won, but it's gone. If you happen to see a bottle, grab it. I don't know. Is there one in Louisiana? Well, there you go. Yeah. In fact, if you got one, just pull it back. I'll take it. That's where we're at on that one today.
So that's probably a good segue into the next.
Is it time to
product.
drink?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Is it
all
time
right.
to drink? Yeah. So the next product you'll try is our Three Kings. So in the same way, the sherry cask is kind of a testament to what you can do with blendings. The Three Kings is the same. So the only product ever, I'm sure you guys have had wheat whiskey, and it's kind of a new trend to mix bourbons and ryes. You might have had a rye and bourbon mix, but I'm sure none of you have had a mix of rye, bourbon, and wheat whiskey, which is what this product is. So an 11-year-old of each of those and another 15-year-old bourbon. So, and the cool part about it is you really get each of those different types of whiskey in their maturity with those 11 years. And each of the mash bills for them is super high percentage of their main grain. The rye being a 95.5, the wheat being a 95.5 wheat, so 95% wheat, 5% malted barley on each of those. And then the bourbon being a 99% corn bourbon. So for the 11-year-old, the 15-year-old is a more standard rye bourbon mash bill. Yes.
So your recipes or sourced?
Sourced recipes for those. Yep. But as I said, a dominant expression of each of those grains mixed together, so you really get to see what those are like combined. And the goal with all of our products is, and I hope you see with this, to balance. So we don't want any of the products to be dominant and overexpressive. We want them to kind of find an equilibrium with each other where they're all presented in different places, whether that's the nose, the palate, the finish. But I think this product did a great job with that, where you can find the profiles of each of the products in the sip. And it is 107 proof on that board.
Awards on this one?
Was Best American Whiskey at John Barleycorn, and it was Best American Blended Whiskey at the World Whiskies Awards, which is put on by American Whiskey Magazine. So
what does everybody think of this one? Isn't it good? What do y'all get on it? I've never had y'all this quiet before. Drink a couple, do a couple shots, and we'll ask again. What do y'all get on this one? I got a really dark fruit on it.
yeah.
Very dark fruit. Good finish. It is creamy.
Uh-huh.
Would you say, Christine? Creamy. Yep.
I always think pretty baking spice heavy. A lot of baking spice. Yep.
What's the MSRP on this one?
179.
Did you say there was a 15-year-old?
Yes. Also,
That's the oldest.
yep, an 11-year-old of each of the types of whiskey and a 15-year-old bourbon.
Wow.
So Three Kings for the Three Kings of whiskey, right? The wheat, the rye, and the corn with the bourbon. And never been done before. It's a playfulness that we like to have in it to kind of
Thank you.
work around and see what we can do with what we have. It won't happen again at those ages. The 11-year-old wheat whiskey that we had is gone.
Yep.
It's all in those bottles. I don't know how many bottles we did of that total. Was it?
I want to say like 3,000.
Yeah, so around 3,000 bottles of it.
I will say that was the hardest product I've had to blend, as you might be able to imagine with those different whiskeys. I will say bourbon whiskey and wheat whiskey tend to match together pretty well, but it's when you take those two and try and throw in a high rye mash bill that things tend to go a little sour. And so I remember spending time trying the rye at different proportions and going lower and lower and lower on the rye proportion and I couldn't get rid of this kind of short, bitey finish that it had. And it was just, how a normal young rye is. It was that kind of sharp, minty finish. And I really wanted it to be balanced out. And I remember calling him in frustration saying, I don't think I can figure it out. I don't think it's going to happen. We're going to have to scrap the product, because it was kind of a experimentation to begin with.
And we did scrap a few.
Yeah. And I ended up trying I don't know why. I was like, maybe if I take the rye and try it at a higher percentage than I have any of these other blends, it'll work out. And funny enough, you take the rye, put it higher than it was before, and that finish smoothed off, and it imparted a nice aged rye profile. So goes to show it's not always logical how the blends work out. You just have to try things, and it will just end up being not what you thought at all. It was an interesting blend for sure.
If you all may have touched on this, I didn't hear it, but how many states are you distributed in now, and kind of what's the plan in the next, say, 3 to 5?
About 28.
Well, yeah, we're in 28 states today,
20 states.
and we're really trying. We're going to hold that steady for now. So we think we don't need to expand. You know, we need to build into that, and maybe we talk a little bit about building into that. I mentioned the history component, and so our whiskeys right now in Kentucky, we have a $99 15 stars, Kentucky only, and called Kentucky Stars, a blend of a couple of 8s and a little bit of 15-year-old in there, but a really great whiskey. But $99, that's our lowest price point, Kentucky only. Outside Kentucky, it's $139 to $279, and that's kind of where we've been on that. And I mentioned to you we look for items of historic craftsmanship, and some great work that has been produced in Kentucky and elsewhere around Kentucky, and being 15 stars. This is a unique bottle that was actually produced. We've got in our collection probably a dozen of these. This was produced in Kentucky. It was the very first bottle in the early 1800s that was produced and used for whiskey. It wasn't used for a brand. It was used just sold by people who, I guess you would go to the local store, you would get out of a barrel some whiskey, you'd put your cork in it, and you got a container. So in the early 1800s, this bottle was hand blown in Louisville, Kentucky. It's got American Eagle on it, got some cool ribs on it, blue glass, bubbles in the glass. So a real historic artifact. And an artifact that is in the Metropolitan Museum of Art and other great museums around the country, but seems to have been forgot about in Kentucky. So a really special bottle. So what did we decide to do? And that is we are coming out with a line of bourbons that are $59, $69, and $79 bourbons. And we took this piece of Kentucky history that's been forgotten. And we're digging up some other items of Kentucky history that we'll be bringing forward. And we created a bottle that was made in its image with the same kind of ribs on it, the same kind of ID. We did skinny it up a little bit because we're thinking about retailers. Use it Martin's, we thought, okay, a retailer is gonna need to be a little more space efficient on the shelf. So we skinnied it up a little bit. We got the best bottle design company in the country, Stranger & Stranger, to do the ID on it. This is fresh out of a factory last week, and the labels are fresh into our office this morning from FedEx. So first one that's been put together, topper on it that's wooden, that has 15 stars on it. The 15 stars that was on a 1792 Kentucky token, a coin minted with 15 stars on it. Top star had a K on it for Kentucky. So pulling out the history of Kentucky on this as well. It's named after First West. So First West Kentucky was America's First West. When you come through the Cumberland Gap or down the Ohio River, it was really for those eastern states. When Kentucky became a state, it was America's West. So we've got Daniel Boone on the front, leading settlers through the Cumberland Gap in 1775, a year before the Declaration of Independence. So again, a lot about the history of Kentucky, the history of bourbon, the history in Kentucky, the gas, and our $15 bottles batch. It's new territory, and it really is about what was happening in Kentucky at the time. People were exploring new territory, figuring out what opportunity there was for their lives. And it's a little bit what Rick and I are doing. We're exploring new territory in these bourbons, right? But the three kings that you have, a never before blended whiskey. So we're exploring new territory and finding out how we make the very, very best bourbons that we can make. So this one is a small batch. Small batch does 5 barrels or less. It's going to be 20, but we guys put 25 on the order, so I've got to do something. So we got 25 barrels or less, a blend of 5, 6, and 7-year-old Kentucky bourbons. It will include for the first time our own bourbons. So also in a toasted oak product at $69. That's turning out great. Same process that we go through, just like in the blended cask that Ricky talked about. You know, we got 2 oak casks that we like, and we figured out a blend of those 2 oak toasted casks that go together to make this. So 5, 6, and 7-year-old again, red, white, and blue corns in a blend of 2 toasted oak, and then an extra aged product at 8 and 9 years old. So July is when you get to see that. So we're real happy to bring a little piece of Kentucky history and explore some new territory in bourbon.
So what is the literal Indian translation of the word Kentucky? Do I know? What's the translation of Kentucky? Do you all know it? It's the bloody dirt, because when Daniel Boone came across, there were animals everywhere, and there were over 200 Indian tribes that would migrate into Kentucky. Some stayed here, but most of them were nomadic tribes that would come here, hunt, and take it back for the winter because of all of the animals and the rich landscape.
That's really why
had.
Kentucky was open area, as Steve said. There really were not Indian villages here. There were not native people that lived in Kentucky. It was really a shared hunting ground. So it was really open territory. Yeah. So anyway, is it time to drink something?
I think so. Yep. Pour number 4 is our 3 Ports product. Do we need some more over there?
We just got a big wind.
You guys can just pass that down.
Mine's gonna spill too if he gets that whole bottle.
Well, they woke up in the back. They woke up back there.
So the 3 Ports, a blend of 3 different port cask finished bourbons. So we took 2 bourbons, a 9 and a 15-year-old, blended them together, finished them in white, tawny, and ruby port casks, and bottled it at 105 proof. Yep, 100.
Ricky, say all that again. Say it again. 9 and 15.
9 and 15-year-old blended together, cut and finished in white, ruby, and tawny port casks simultaneously, and then blended back together to create our 3 port finished bourbon.
Yeah, again, never been produced before, right? Nobody's ever put those 3 ports together. And we didn't intend it that way, right? We put those aged whiskeys in several casks, and then we just started experimenting.
Yeah, so with all our finished products, we're experimenting as we go with a lot of different things, and one of those being finishing. So we're trying whiskeys, ryes, and bourbons in a lot of different finishing casks to figure out what we like and what we want to do on an ongoing basis. But what has ended up happening with our finished products, like we have our triple cask 1 and 2 that came out before the 3 ports, we have this array of 10 to 12 different bourbons in various finishing casks, and we just spend time blending them together, seeing what works together. And with a name like 3 Ports and being those 3 port casks, you would think that was a very intentional thing. But the truth is we had an array of 12 different finishes, including sherries, rums, a bunch of different things, and ended up closing in on those ports. That was just the best blend we Yes.
It was just released, actually, so it's a fresh to the market product. Hasn't been any contest or awards on it yet, but the reviews have been fantastic, and people have loved that idea of those 3 ports, and several of the reviewers saying talking about the difficulty of marrying different ports.
Yep. Looks like we're about to get a rain. So
Yeah, it's coming.
with the 3 ports and with all our other finishes, what we think is special about them is they go through 2 different blending or 2 different blends. And that first one is when we're figuring out what we want to put in those casks, we are going through the entire blending process that we do for any other product. So creating that 9 and 15-year-old blend, we experimented with multiple different barrels, different mash bills to create a blend that we loved, a blend that we would on its own release as a product before putting it in those finishing casks. And then, it's aging in all these different casks. And when we bring it back together, we're blending that at a bunch of different ratios to figure out what blends of these casks we like the best. So it's really, the finish has become a very, that's undergone a lot of scrutiny.
So raise your hand if you like, in general, finished bourbons. Raise your hand if you would prefer not to have finished bourbon. So most like finished, right? Okay, good. So what do you think of this one? Triple port.
Dry, but
Pretty good.
I like the fruit point on it.
Did you say Jonathan's dry?
I say it's a little dry.
Little bit, yeah.
But I think the fruit point really is great. It's a really great combination.
Anybody else? Michael? It does, doesn't it?
Do we have number 5?
We're board number 5 right now.
All right, I'll hold off a second.
So
Yeah.
let's go back to history. It's kind of one of my favorite subjects. Hypothetically, if this brand was called 16 Stars. No, you all know that. Do you know the answer? Okay, don't say it. Anybody else know the answer?
I know an answer. It can't be 16 stars because we've affirmed with our trademark people that nobody can do that. But anyway, but if.
Hypothetically, that would be the Rocky Top state.
Yeah.
And what state was Tennessee carved out of?
Yeah.
North Carolina. What state was Kentucky carved out of?
Virginia.
And who was the governor of Virginia in 1792 when it became a state? Nope. He was the governor before. Who was the governor in 1792? No, I'll give you a hint. Robert E. Lee's father.
How many distilleries?
Harry Lighthorse Lee.
Robert E. Lee Senior.
Oh my God. Oh my God. Was that one of the Louisiana Friends? Good granny. Good granny. Harry Lighthorse Lee was the governor of Virginia. And when Kentucky became a state, how many counties did we have when we were carved out?
120.
No, that would be today, Booth. There were 3, and one of them was Bourbon County.
How many distilleries are in Bourbon County?
We'll do your event next month.
We got
A lot of history there. Dennis, question.
Uh-oh. Let's see, we're losing a couple.
The wind's coming. Keep moving. Dennis, appreciate it.
Yeah.
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 Yeah, so the question was, how many kind of one-off products have we created? And a good few of the 15 Stars products are one-off, things that will continue. So the idea is something that will continue with Triple Cask, which it went from Triple Cask 1 to Triple Cask 2, but the casks varied slightly. So the idea of a 3-cask blend was the same, but the casks being slightly different. And then the 3 ports took a different name, but it really is the same thing, but a different look. So I understand it. It seems like a different thing, but that follows that triple cask idea. And then I would say the next product will be a triple cask. But then we have some products. Everything you see up here, our private stock is a consistent release.
Hey, everybody in the back, if you don't mind, be courteous to our guests. Getting really loud. Getting really loud out there. Hello? Hello in the back.
We paid for this.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, guys.
So the private stock is a consistent release. The what was our Timeless Reserve, the Platinum also I would say is a consistent release, and the Timeless Reserve are a consistent release. But the rest of it, like our Founders Reserve Rye, the 3 ports, the Three Kings for sure are not one-offs. Yeah. So it's really that, I would say mainly the private stock will always be around, and the Timeless Reserve will always be around, and the rest are it's limited release. I mean, even the private stock and the Timeless Reserve, the bottlings themselves are very limited releases. And the Timeless Reserve, I think the last batch we did was like 1,800 bottles total. So a very limited product.
So we got one here that, again, nobody outside the family has ever tried. We're hoping you love it. It's become a favorite of mine. What I've noticed is the bottle keeps going down on the bottle level. So that's a sign in our house that something good is there. And if you just go back to thinking about 15 stars before you even try this, is if you think about it, I think the things that would say what we are is we shoot for the very, very best that we can do. And that's really where we start, shooting for the very, very best that we can do. We do it with and for people we like, and it's that social piece. We do it with highly aged whiskeys. We love highly aged whiskeys. We do it with blending because we think that's how we bring the very best flavors into that bottle, is by blending it. And we do it with flavor proofing by integrating that into the process and making the proof. The proof is an integral part of making that very, very best whiskey. So those are some of the core things that we put into it. We put that into this rye. We haven't done a lot of ryes. This is a really, really special thing that has some of the 95.5 traditional rye mash bill, some of the 51% more Kentucky rye style. So a blend of 14-year-old, 13-year-old, 9-year-old, and 8-year-old rye whiskeys. And proof-wise, where are we at on this one?
So this product is the lowest proof that we offer. It is 95. So we really thought that this product expressed itself best at that low proof, just being smooth and easy drinking. And it brought out, a lot of rye can be a little spicy, a little hot sometimes. So that low proof really benefited it in taming the heat and bringing out the old rye flavors that are present in these old ryes.
So how many of you all enjoy a rye whiskey?
Good people.
How many of you enjoy a rye whiskey as much as bourbon? Just maybe a different occasion. So everybody loves it. Good.
Interesting. Yeah.
That's really is.
Isn't
You
it
like
good?
that one? Yeah.
Here we go.
And now let me repeat what was said. This has never been served before outside of their kitchen. So Rick, do you all like this? Good stuff. And if you mentioned it, I apologize. Going to market, retail, is there not?
It'll be very limited.
Okay.
I think we have like 240 some 6-packs of it. So, right, yeah.
Well, they've got 12 cases allocated to Big Bourbon Club.
Yeah. So it'll be fairly limited, but it'll be available. We have product around here in Kentucky. Westport Wine and Whiskey, I think that is the correct way to say that, but has all our products, and hopefully we'll have that as well.
Yeah,
I've got a question
release
that
at
just
the
came
end of
in.
the month.
I'm sorry, Rick, go ahead.
We'll release it at the end of the month, and then
June 3rd.
we won't make it again until next year.
Yep.
So we got a question from Kerry Shanks, who is a distiller in Carbondale, Colorado.
Cool.
Good friend of ours. He's been here. He came in from Colorado to present to the club. When trial blending, what are the proportions? And how confident can you be of a consistent flavor profile at scale?
Yeah, so in the trial, the proportions start as, I want to say, okay, if we're blending two things, let's say, okay, you have a 75% blend A blend. You have a 50-50 and then a 70, or component A, sorry. Then you have a 50-50 and then you have a 75% of component B and 25% component A. And that gives you an idea of direction. And once you figure out general direction, you focus in more from there. And then you have a 60%, a 75%, and a 85% of whatever direction, whether it's component A or B, you decided to go in. And from there, it just gets smaller and smaller and smaller. What was the second part of that question?
Let me pull it back up.
Consistency.
Yeah, how confident can you be in a consistent flavor when
So
you go to
that goes
scale?
back to when we pull samples to create the products with, we're pulling from multiple barrels so that it can be more representative of the whole. It's never going to be perfect because there's also filtering that happens after between the dumping of the product and it being put in a bottle that we don't simulate. But it is generally very close with small, hardly noticeable variances. I will say there's been like a product in the past that was a little surprising in the end, but other than that,
Good answer.
But I think the other thing to think about here too is with a number of our things, consistency isn't really what we're after. Now it will be with like
we do.
the private stock, right? Our 8 and 15. We'll be able to produce that at a really consistent level. But a lot of the things we're trying to do, like this rye, and when we do it again next year, it will be a little different, right? It'll just be a little different, and we like that, and we appreciate that, and that's again back to it's harder on us, right? Because we're actually reworking the whiskey every time we do it in a really deliberate way.
And not reworking it to be the same. We just are again
To be the best it can be.
Like for the private stock, when we go back and do private stock again, well, private stock's the same, but when we do go back to do this rye, we're going to take those same components and blend them and try and figure out the best way to blend them again, which will likely, given they're a little more aged, a little different, not lead to the same outcome, the same blend.
Was anybody here when Marble Distilling presented? Not many of you. Well, if you don't know Connie and Carrie, there's no doubt that was a very thoughtful question. It was Connie's question, and he served as proxy on that. I have no doubt.
That
was a joke.
We're trying to get out there and put those very special things in a bottle. We're not we're not trying to make them the same. We're not trying to push them into something. We're trying to let the whiskey speak and let them be the very best they can be.
They're pretty expensive.
We do have a group of friends, that it's a fun process, and it really, a lot of people say, well, we'd like to blend with you, but you'd need a month and a half, is the truth, and it really just takes us that long. It's not like everybody thinks you can come in and in a couple hours we'll create a blend, and then it doesn't work that way with us anyway.
Brennan is not normally funny. That was pretty good. Stephen, you're up.
We have a lot available.
Yeah, you are entirely correct. And that's why we've spent a lot of time and money to create a group of barrels that is pretty expansive in mash bill and flavor profile, so that we're never working with the same flavor profiles in these products. If you try all our releases, they all taste different, and that's because of the inventory we've been able to get.
Ed?
How many barrels do you have in your storage right now?
A bunch.
Yeah, a bunch.
100?
In biblical terms, it's like 40 days. It's a whole lot.
Less than 20,000. A little less. A lot of whiskey.
All right, Stephen, part 2, and then we got Jonathan with a question over here.
Yeah.
4. So question was, how many rounds of blending do we go through before a final product is made? I would say the general answer is 4. 4 times of going back to the product on a different day and blending. And then that's when we have a proof that we're pretty happy with, and then we take it home and we'll sit with it and sip it, try it on rocks, try it neat. And then we might go back and make some edits, but I would say 4 or 5 is probably the days. They taste it with us. They do. Yeah.
Well, there's some things we don't get a vote on, and there's some things they don't get a vote on.
All right, Jonathan.
So after you sample these, a couple, 3 or 4 times, you guys sample it. know you're gonna have some of the bourbon or whiskey left over. How many infinity bottles do you guys have in your cabinet for your friends that come over?
You know, that's an interesting question though, because when we blend, it brings out a key component of our blending. Really, when we work with it, we really mostly work with 2 or 3 bourbons, because that infinity bottle, what we find is you can optimize a blend with 2 or 3 or maybe 4. But when you really get beyond that, and you see some bottles that have, you know, a whole bunch of stuff in it, is that once you get past there's a point at which it dilutes. You're not lifting it up anymore. You're not blending in. You're starting to blend out. So when there's a certain point for us that infinity bottle, really, we don't keep it, right? It goes down the drain, you know, because it's just not optimal. It's not optimal. So if you want to be at the end of our drain, it's a great drain.
All right,
Yeah.
the Indians are getting restless.
Yeah.
I'm getting texts from people in this room saying, "Are we going to drink more bourbon?" I'm like, I won't say who it is, Bill. Excuse me, I'm not going to say who it is. What did you think of the rye? I heard you. Crest spoke up. What did you think? Grab the bottom. So we're going to do a drawing for a bottle of rye. How many of you here? Does everybody have a ticket for the drawing?
That's a good looking bottle.
Lee, you didn't get one? How many here are waiting for the drawing before they go home? Well, you sit down. I got a story to tell you. All right. It's my favorite all-time quote, and it's real. It's a Daniel Boone quote. So Daniel Boone, we believe, was the first white to come through the Cumberland Gap and get west of the Appalachian Mountains. And anyway, on one of his hunting trips, he was gone for 2.5 years. True story. He comes back. His wife had married his brother thinking he was killed. Did you all know that story at all? True story. 2.5 years he's gone. She marries a brother, comes back. And they said, "Daniel, what happened? Were you lost?" He goes, "No, I never got lost." He goes, "But I was bewildered once for 3 days." No, you can laugh. It's okay. That's a real quote. He was bewildered, but he was gone for 2.5 years. Wow, it's a tough crowd tonight. Let me tell some more
Somebody's
stories.
going to
until
get
they
bottle
actually
number
participate.
46.
Huh?
Somebody's getting bottle number 46.
Well, I may tell them some more stories just to get them to laugh a little bit more. Y'all want to do the drawing now? Hold on, we got Hal. That's my animal spirit right there. Him bred with a werewolf would be my animal spirit. All right, well, why don't we, should we do a drawing?
Sure.
You want to do it?
Ricky.
All right, so Ricky, you want to pull it? I got one more question that was on Facebook earlier I didn't ask. Where did you go to school?
Indiana University.
And the question is, could you not get into Purdue? No, that's a joke. That was my joke. So the real question is, did you drink bourbon in college? And if so, what expressions did you enjoy?
Yes, and I had Wild Turkey Rare Breed.
You never told me that.
Wow. You didn't drink Kentucky Gentleman, all the junk we used to drink? Huh?
It was Rare Breed.
There
Rare
you-
Breed and Buffalo Trace.
Well, you like the good stuff early. Good
Yeah.
for you. All right, so we're going to do a drawing. Michael, sir, what did you drink in college or as a young man?
I don't think I drank.
Did you? Bullshit. Horseshit. Excuse me.
I think honestly, I wasn't drinking the kind of stuff he was drinking. I can tell you that.
Did you go to IU as well?
I did go to IU,
Yeah.
and I was mostly a beer guy, a cheap beer.
Really?
You know.
When
yeah.
did you when did you start appreciating bourbon?
You know, I'm a hunter, right? So I'm a duck hunter, and I hunt a lot of things, but duck and goose, wildfowl mainly. And so I got early on. You know, you go on those winter nights and those evenings, and I got to say, I was a Maker's Mark drinker.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
All right, y'all ready? All right. Ricky, you pull one out. Don't screw it up. All right, read it out. Must be present to win.
It's blank, or is it just the number?
Just the last 3.
Thought I was supposed to read a name. 803.
803.
Woo!
Dennis. All right. All right, let's get a picture. You know what?
Get over here.
It's terrible when the richest guy wins all the prizes. Dennis, is that you? All right, let's go. All right, hold on. Congratulations, Dennis.
Thank you.
Because I know what deck we're going to share that on. Okay. Perfect. Thank you.
Awesome bunch.
All right.
Awesome bunch.
Last comment that I'm going to make in all seriousness. Isn't it cool? Isn't it so cool in an industry like whiskey, like bourbon? The two guys can come out of a cornfield, didn't even like bourbon when he was young, and come up with an incredible brand with their own ingenuity, their own money. It's not just the Buffalo Trace, the Sazeracs of the world, the makers. They make great stuff. But it's entrepreneurs and great dreamers and thinkers that really make this even better. So you all did a great job. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, you all have the final word.
Yeah. You know, I think what we'd say is we just, we love what we're doing. We're having a lot of fun. We're making great whiskey. It's great to have a family business to do it. And it's great to share it with good people. This is an industry that is like the very first business I was in. I've been in some that have, you know, different kinds of cultures. This is a business with a people culture. And whiskey is about people. It's about bringing people together. And we appreciate the opportunity to share some of what we do with you guys. And we're thankful for the ability to do it as father and son. So I don't know if you got anything to add to that. But.
I think you said it pretty well.
Yeah.
I do have a small thing to add. He said the nice stuff, and now I'll say the salesy stuff that you guys don't want to hear. But if you enjoyed the products and want to try more of them, we are available locally in the area, bars and Westport Wine and Whiskey, which I said, Total Wine, Liquor Barn. On our, if you,
You're drunk?
yes, sometimes, and yes. But if you want to learn more, I mean, you guys learned quite a lot tonight, but our website's always available. We have a newsletter on there that you can sign up for. I write the newsletters myself. We're not just churning out a bunch of BS just to send to you guys and flood your inboxes. I only write something if there's something to be said. So if you want to stay up to date, that or our social media, 15 Stars Bourbon, Facebook and Instagram.
All right, so I'm a couple of, the rumor is that you, well, it's not a rumor, you do not have a barrel pick program today. The rumor is you're going to maybe start one.
We are.
And the rumor is you may have selected a partner to maybe do the first one.
We got somebody.
I didn't say us. But hypothetically, I haven't used that word in 6 years. I've used it 3 times. Hypothetically, if we were chosen to be the first, would you be interested in a bottle of the barrel pick from 15 Stars?
Yeah. It would be in a bottle a lot like this, and it would say something like Rare Selection on the front, and it would say something like Big Bourbon Club.
Are y'all still interested?
Yeah.
There you go. We love it. We'll see you all next. June 21st for. Oh my God, we have Whiskey Thief here. We've got 2 different. We have brands everywhere. Whiskey Thief, but we'll see you with Oak Carter here. We had Whiskey Thief 3 weeks ago. But thank you all very much. Great job. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank
Steve.
you.
Appreciate it.
That was awesome.
Yeah.
Can we get a picture real quick? Here, let me get in the middle.